During this morning for a very special, very difficult resolution presentation. Difficult because the individual that we're going to honor is someone who's been very close to not only those of us who are here through the Department of Youth Affairs, but through the entire island community. And I want to thank Speaker Wampat for joining us, and I certainly want to thank Shirley Chargualaf, the wife of the late Edward B. Chargualaf, for agreeing to give us just a small opportunity to memorialize him and to demonstrate our profound appreciation for all that he does and all that he did rather for the youth and families here on Guam. And for those of us watching, for those of you watching on television, you can see that you have the Director of the Department of Youth Affairs, Adonis Mendiola. Thank you also for being here, and Grace Taigno and Ed Taigno, and also Pascual Artero, and also some Rebecca's just joining us, and also other individuals of Mr. Chargualaf's family. And I wanted the DYA family to be here, and although Director Adonis didn't have the pleasure of having Ed on your staff, he kind of, when I was first appointed in 2000, he was already retired, going to be retired, and Shirley was very excited. And when I was told to go to DYA and help that agency, and when I talked to Ed, the first thing he told me was, "I'm going to be retiring." And my response was, "No, you're not." He said, "I already told Shirley we have plans." And I said, "Ed, I heard so much about you, and my appointment to DYA is conditional that you continue working." And I said, "Please get Shirley's support," and he did. And he wrote that out, and then he stayed a little bit when the former Senator Chris Duenas was appointed DYA, and then he had another calling in life. But this Resolution 320-33 is introduced by myself, Speaker Wampat, and all other members of the legislature. And I want to read it, if that's okay. I want to read it because it really is very important that we read it into the record, but also that, again, you give us an opportunity to present this resolution in the most dignified manner. So relative to recognizing and memorializing the late Edward B. Chargualaf for his many notable achievements and for faithfully serving the people of Guam, Hawaii, and the rest of the nation, and particularly for his service to the youth of Guam and Hawaii, and to further extending sincere and humble condolences to his family on his passing on behalf of I Liheslaturan Guahan and the people of Guam. Be it resolved by the Committee on Rules of Imina 33, I Liheslaturan Guahan, whereas the late Ed B. Chargualaf was born on November 16, 1953, and is a son of Sergio Ramirez Chargualaf and Patricia Babauta Chargualaf of Afami Sinahanya, where he grew up with his 7 siblings. Whereas after completing his grade school education at Guam schools, Ed graduated and received his high school diploma in 1971 from the Guam Vocational Technical High School, and he then enlisted in the U.S. Army, serving from 1971 to 1973, and he graduated from the U.S. Army's Communications Specialist School at Fort Ord, California, where he acquired skills in management, computer programming, and grant writing and management. Whereas on March 17, 1973, Ed married Shirley Jean Chargualaf of Hawaii, who survives his passing, and their children are Edward B. Chargualaf Jr., Ulani Kualei Chargualaf, predeceased Edmund K.C. Chargualaf and Sherilyn M.C. Chargualaf, and are also blessed with 7 grandchildren: Kekoa Fernandez, Makoa Lucero, Hoban Chargualaf, Noah Lucero, Miley Chargualaf, Kau'i Lucero, and Chloe Chargualaf. And whereas in 1981, Ed began his Government of Guam career and served in a long-time association as a program coordinator too for the Government of Guam's Division of Youth Development, Department of Youth Affairs, rising steadily in the ranks until he was named as a Juvenile Justice Specialist in 1990. And whereas in 1994, Ed was named as the Youth Development Administrator of the Government of Guam's Division of Youth Development, And whereas in 2004, Ed was named as the executive director of the Koloa Hi'i Ecumenical Youth Project in Kanoe, Hawaii. And whereas from September 2009 to December 2015, the time of his passing, Ed served as a juvenile justice specialist for the state of Hawaii relative to juvenile delinquency. And whereas Edward B. Chargualaf received much professional recognition for his work over the years, on June 11, 2015, he received the Tony Gobar Outstanding Juvenile Justice Specialist Award for exemplifying leadership through service and for reminding all of us that every child is indeed special, which was presented by the Coalition for Juvenile Justice. And whereas Senator Rory Respicio, who was the director of Guam's Department of Youth Affairs, at the same time Edward B. Chargualaf was DYA's Youth Development Administrator, shared the following statement: "I will always remember Ed and his passion for Ireland's youth and families. In fact, he was getting ready to retire at the time I was first appointed to serve as DYA Director. I asked him to continue working for the department and was so grateful that he willingly and without hesitation agreed to stay on board. He was a driving force behind DYA's success and in being awarded the Department of the Year for 3 consecutive years. Indeed, DYA has a great team, and I truly credit Ed's leadership and positive nature for bringing people together to solve problems together and to ensure that DYA's focus remained on its core mission. I'm also grateful to Shirley and their family for allowing him to continue his work at DYA until such time they relocated to Hawaii. May God continue to bless Shirley and their family, and may Edward B. Chargualaf, our dear friend and colleague, rest in peace." And whereas Meg Williams, a national officer of the Coalition for Juvenile Justice, offered this assessment of Edward B. Chargualaf on his passing, and I quote, "I have had the great fortune of working with Ed over the past several years. In my estimation, a gentler soul could not be found. He not only had a passion for the work he did, serving the youth of Hawaii, especially those who found themselves involved in the justice system. He also had a passion for helping all the helpers like him. It is now our turn to say a fond farewell to a wonderful friend. Now therefore be it resolved that the Committee on Rules of the I Liheslaturan Guahan does hereby, on behalf of the I Liheslaturan Guahan and the people of Guam, recognize and memorialize the late Edward B. Chargualaf for his many notable achievements and for faithfully serving the people of Guam, Hawaii, and the rest of the nation, and in particular for his service to the youth of Guam and Hawaii, and does further extend sincere and humble condolences to his family on his passing. And be it further resolved that the Speaker and the Chairperson of the Committee on Rules certify and the Legislative Secretary attest to the adoption hereof, and the copies of the same be thereafter transmitted to the late Edward B. Chargualaf's wife, Shirley Jean Chargualaf, and family, and to the Honorable Edward J.B. Calvo, I Guahan." And this was duly adopted by the Committee on Rules of I Liheslaturan Guahan on March 22nd, 2016. And it's signed by our Honorable Judith Wampat, Speaker, myself as the Chairman, Committee on Rules, and the Honorable Tina Rose Munya Barnes as Legislative Secretary. So, we can only fit so many words in this piece of paper, but the memories that all of us have of Ed will continue, and it will continue in the hearts and minds of the young people who are now adults and have their own families, but also will continue throughout all the Governor Guam employees who look back and emulate his work while at the Department of Youth Affairs, and also when he moved on to Hawaii, he couldn't be too far away from the juvenile justice system, and so he continued his work there. So Shirley, on behalf of Speaker Wampat and every single member of the legislature, and I'll ask the Speaker to formally present the resolution, but I also want to say undanku na si Diyos Mahasi for all the support you've given Ed over the years and for your continued support to allow for this kind of presentation and give us an opportunity to also mourn his loss. And so we love you and we thank you for all that you've done and all that you're doing as you continue his work. And your work also. Thank you. I want to also invite the DYA family to, again, they're in social work and they provide all the emotional and physical triage necessary to bring about this healing. And because Ed was in Hawaii and he was buried in Hawaii, the only thing we could do is extend our prayers through our own individual way. But I want to give them an opportunity to kind of share some experiences that you had with him, and we can do that this time. I'll begin with the director.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say on behalf of those of us who came in after Ed served his time, myself included, it was without a doubt that we saw the ripples that he created. They became tidal waves of change, and the development of the staff, the investment in them that I'm sure paid dividends, not just in the community, but in the lives of children. Your husband touched lives and changed the future. And that's a very important thing to remember, that the future is never the same so long as you spread a kind word, give healing where healing is needed, and give hope and inspiration as he has to many of the staff. I see him in their work and in their dedication and their commitment. So thank you for giving him to our island, our community. He was a gift, and a gift that I think even now, even not knowing him, I do cherish and I appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shirley. It's good to see you again. As an intern, starting in '88, beginning there as social work, and now the youth development administrator, I really appreciated everything and how he brought the community from just punitive, the work that we did, where he always said that, GYA was more of like a warehouse. So the shift in the 90s is that we became community-based, and that's what I fondly most remember about how he made that shift for our children and making us more accessible in the community through our resource centers. Thank you.
Shirley, we just really appreciate Mr. Ed. For me, he was a stronghold. When I started with DYA, I came in as a social worker, and when I talked to him about going back to get my master's, he was the one that encouraged me. And currently, as of today, I'm currently a licensed therapist, and I work through the Superior Court of Guam Client Services, but also working at DYA. So I've retired, but I've come back to give back. And I think for me, he was my role model. And he kept me strong, and he encouraged me, and he really contributed to who I am today. So just wanted to thank you so much.
Hi. Well, Ed was my very first boss when I started in 1997, and boy, he had plans for me greater than I even anticipated at my time at DYA. He was my immediate supervisor to begin with, so he really found a role for me. He really put me, and little did I know it at the time, that he was giving me assignments, because I would always wonder, why can't he just do that? He's an administrator, because he has the knowledge and skills, but little did I know that he was really preparing me. And he would teach me a lot about the grants that information I didn't think was necessary. I never thought I would need it today. And today I'm now the JJ specialist. And Ed continued over the years, even after his retirement, to mold me and guide me and mentor me in that process. I would send him a quick email, and he would always respond half Hawaiian, half Chamorro. He would say Hafade Buenas and end it with Mahalo, and he always gave me answers. Additionally, even after he retired, when I would go off island for conferences associated with OJJDP, we would meet at the same table, sitting down together, and then he would always invite me to stop in Hawaii. And there were times when I had business, or I would just stop over on the way back, and you and Ed continued to take me and embrace me and make me part of your family. I miss him dearly. It was really a surprise for all of us. But he continues to truly live in our hearts and in our lives and in the work that we do. And I know that you are a strong woman of faith. I see it in how you're holding yourself up and in your Facebook posts. I stalk you a little bit. That's off the record. But I'm really proud of what Ed has done for all of us and how he continues to live in your spirits, especially in the grandchildren. So we miss him, but he'll forever be in our hearts, and you're always in our prayers. We can't leave out Pasquale. No? Okay. He's going to cry.
You know, for many of us, our memories of Ed go back 16 plus years, but you could say, as Director Mendiola pointed out, his work continues at the department. And before I ask you to just say a few words, Shirley, I want to share my fondest memory of Ed was when we were at the Rory Point for this oratorical contest where we identified 4 individuals who were positive contributing members of the community to compete to go to a conference under the JBIG grant, OJDP, it was Youth Crime Watch. And so there was 4 of student body leaders and, presidents and vice presidents and just community leaders. And at DYA, and the philosophy still is that God didn't make any bad youth. He just made individuals with the ability to make choices. And so they find themselves in a temporary situation where they've made a bad choice and they found themselves at the Department of Youth Affairs. And so every project that the Department of Youth Affairs had, you couldn't tell if it were a DYA Youth Correctional Facility kid, or you couldn't tell if it was a student body leader. So we tested that theory by inviting 4 individuals who were at the Youth Correctional Facility and they were incarcerated at the time to also compete in the oratorical contest. And so all 8 of them did a fantastic job, and Ed was one of the judges, and he came to me, and even before he told me who won, we were on stage and I was ready to make the announcement. I just whispered to him, I said, Ed, you have to admit that they all did a great job. Yes, they did. Okay, so let's send all of them. We were only prepared to send 1, and he said, this is all in front of everybody. Are you kidding? I said, we can do it, right? And he said, let's rock and roll. And that was his famous words. He said, I cannot tell you how we're going to do it now, but we'll figure it out. We'll go back, we'll look at the grants, we'll look at the funds. And so we were able to announce that everybody was a winner. And so we put those 2 groups together, and that was the product of that philosophy and what he believed in. So so I want to give you an opportunity also to say a few words.
I just want to say thank you very much, Rory, senators, and everyone here. Ed was a very compassionate person, so humble, and never ever wanted to take credit for anything, but that was Ed. And he loved everybody, and he loved DYA, everybody in it. He loved his families, his grandchildren, and such a strong man. Never, even during the time that he got sick, he never showed it. Never complained, always so positive. Went to work, cleaned the yard, kept my car very nice. And then he would always talk to his sisters and his brothers. They were all over in the mainland and in Guam, but he would put them together, and then he loved my family as well, treated them, just like his own. And so everybody looked up to him. I have my nephews who were hard-headed, but they loved him so much and they respected him as a father. And like what Father Paulo Kosaka said, at the funeral services was that Ed actually initiated the youth ministry in Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Hawaii, and he said that Ed was the anchor, and that he was such a man of faith. And it's funny because growing up, Ed has always been, he's been an altar server, and when we got married, though, he didn't really go to church until our daughter went to college. Then he decided he was going to join me, but it was a calling. He actually turned his life, to go to church every day, and then, we became co-sponsors for engaged couples and Eucharistic ministers. And then even when we moved on to Hawaii, we became CCD teachers, and then he became a strong part of the youth ministry, both his job and at church, and was on the parish council. So up until the day that he passed, he was such a man of faith, and I loved him so much. And we were married, it would have been 43 years on March 17th, but we've been together 45 years. But such a wonderful man, and I guess that's why he went first, because to me the better goes first. But thank you again. I love you guys, and God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you again. You wanna? It's Wednesday.